Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Empower Sounds podcast. My name is Mahika, and on today's episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about climbing Cringe Mountain and how to stop caring what everyone thinks. More than stop caring, I think stop letting your caring about what people think about you interfere with what you're doing in your life and your dreams and your passions and everything that you want to do. So I wanted to do this because I think it's a really important topic. And I ended up reading this book called The Courage to Be Disliked really recently. And it's super famous. And if any of the stuff that we talk about today resonates with you, I 100% recommend that you go and you get the book. It's written in a really interesting way of it's conversation between this young person and a philosopher. And this book left me with a lot of answers, but it also left me with a lot of questions. And so this episode is inspired by this book, but it's not a summary of the book. So definitely it's my own take on how to stop caring what people think based on my own experience. And this is not something that I have perfected at all. I make this to remind myself that it's an ongoing journey. And anyone who's listening, thank you for sharing the space with me. And I really hope that this is useful to you in some way. And please comment in the podcast Instagram, let me know in DM what you think and what else you want to hear. So let's start. How to stop caring what people think. First of all, you have to realize that it's very natural to care about people's approvals, and it's deeply rooted in like a survival instinct and our need to feel safe and included. And from an evolutionary standpoint, we used to be hunters, gatherers. We were in very tight-knit communities. Our survival depended on us being included. And so it's so normal in our bodies to feel this anxiety when we think people don't like us or when we're not included. But we're not in that place anymore. And I think in today's day and age, being liked by everyone is impossible and it's really difficult and it's not worth it because when you try and make yourself palatable to everyone around you, you end up diluting yourself and your opinions, and you end up viewing yourself from a third person's perspective and all of the things that you're saying and doing and wondering what people will think. And so if this is something that you don't want to carry with you, um, amazing. And I hope that my advice resonates and helps you. So I think after recognizing that caring what people think is really natural, it's really important to forgive yourself for the times that you did something in accordance to other people's expectations rather than what you wanted to do. I think you have to forgive yourself first because you were just trying to fit in because you thought that was the best thing. And in the process, you may or may not have silenced your needs and what you wanted and what you thought and your true expression, but that's okay. And it's fine to have these feelings. If you forgive yourself and you go back to all the times where you didn't feel accepted, and you remind yourself that now you're taking steps to not do that, you're in a way liberating a younger version of yourself that didn't have the resources, nor the courage, nor the strength to do so, and that's fine. Like everything happens in its own time. I think caring what people think was a big part of my growing up, and learning to release that is really liberating slowly. And I think it's a really beautiful and fun thing, but it's also really scary because, like I said, it comes from this evolutionary need to be included and part of community. And I think as humans, we all thrive being part of a community, but it's so important to realize that you do not have to be part of a community at the expense of yourself and your self-expression and what you want to do. They can coexist. So, if I had to summarize how to stop caring what people think in a very succinct way, I would say if you want to stop caring what people think, stop asking. Stop asking people for their opinion constantly. And this links back to something I said in a previous episode, which I'm going to link down below. It was the episode of 20 things I learned at 20. And one of the things I said was learning to form your own opinion. I think I was very, very swept up in the advice of other people because in some way on some level I didn't trust my own intuition and my opinion on certain things, like from the smallest things of what picture I should post to whether my piece of work that I've written for university is good, or whether I should do this, or whether I should start a certain project, or what I should wear, or every little thing. And I think learning to just first form your opinion and then ask people what they think of it rather than not have your own take on something is really powerful. So last year, I ended up living alone for the first time, and it was scary, but it was really liberating because I didn't always have someone's opinion to rely on. And so when I would think about a situation, when I would feel something, when I would need advice, there wasn't always someone available to do that for me. And what I ended up doing was I started recording voice notes on my phone, talking through the situation, how it affected me, how it made me feel. And often, a lot of the time, if you give space for your intuition and what you're thinking, you have the answers. I think it's just about trusting your own answers and your own instincts, and that everything is you have a lot of the information that you need. And again, 100% like having people support that is beautiful. But I think if you're learning to stop caring what people think and having a dependency on others' opinions and validation, learning to self-validate, self-soothe, is so vital. And this can be for little things, like I said, stop asking your friends which one of the 30 million different pictures you're going to post on Instagram, and just choose your favorite one and know that it's great. Or about your outfit, just know your outfit's great. And it can be big things about um something that you're wanting to start. Like when I started this, I don't think I asked people of should I start this podcast? I told the people in my life that I was going to do it, and I was very lucky that many, many, many of them supported me, and here we are. So this is your sign to just make that decision and do it. And it's like a muscle. The more that you do it, the more it grows and the more you can hear yourself. And it gets to a point where your intuition is like screaming at you and it's telling you what the right thing is. And it's so nice when you can actually hear your voice again, because I think for a long time I drowned out my own intuition and internal voice with the advice, input, opinions, conversations of everyone around me. And it was actually a really lonely place to be because I stopped trusting myself. And I think trusting yourself is so important. So I think stop asking people what they think if you want to stop caring what they think. And in this book that I was mentioning, The Courage to be Disliked, it was talking about this thing called the psychology of Adler, who is this psychologist, who's a thinker, and I'll link some resources about him down below, as well as the book. But they were talking about this thing related to the separation of tasks. And so understanding what is your task and what it's not. What someone thinks about you is not your task, it's not your business. I remember when I was a child, I used to see this quote about what people say behind you is none of your business because it's behind you for a reason. I remember this thing of someone saying, think of any famous person that you admire, whether it be a celebrity, a politician, a writer, a sports person. Everyone has haters, and that shows that you can't win if you're doing something where people are paying attention. And so I think just learning to separate the tasks, and your task is to just remember to live in accordance to your values and your responsibilities, and not manage your perception, because if you live in accordance to your values and you value being kind, being fair, being honest, it doesn't matter if you're perceived otherwise, because that's based on other people's judgments. And I think other people's judgments of you are a reflection of the judgments that they have for themselves, because even the filter or the lens of being able to judge someone comes from a judgmental person. And I'm not sure if that made sense. So I'm going to repeat again. You only have the capacity to judge others if you judge yourself. And I think we're all culpable of judgment. I think judgment in itself is not a bad thing. It's again a survival thing. It keeps us alive, discerning whether a situation is good or bad, whether a person is safe or unsafe. But I think when judgment gets in the way is when we create these harmful narratives about others and ourselves and what others perceive of us. And sometimes when you live with this notion of, oh, so and so doesn't like me, or so and so is talking about me, or whatever, even if they're not, they might be, but even if they're not, you're already kind of living through the trauma of that without even experiencing it, because your brain doesn't know if it's real or not. Your brain can't tell if it's your lived experience or if you're imagining it, because it's the same thing up there. And I'm not taking away from anyone who's being bullied in real life, because that happened to me growing up. And I can understand that it's a super painful thing to experience. It's isolating and it's dehumanizing in a lot of ways, and it's not nice being someone who is being picked on. But the more you learn to just externalize it and realize that it's not your business what people think, the better. And also learning that it's liberating in a way to know who doesn't serve you, and whose opinions are harmful, because you can just not continue to make space in your life for these people. If someone is saying all these nasty things about you, you don't have to make space for them. They can go and do that in their own time and space and whatever. You don't have to entertain them. You don't have to be friends with anyone that you don't want to be, or deal with anyone. And I think this links back to this whole book that I was talking about, which is talking about the courage to be disliked. And it says that one of the most liberating aspects of personal growth is embracing the idea that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. And I think when I reflect back, okay, I'm gonna tell you a story because I love telling stories. So, as you may or may not know, my name is Mahika, like I've said in the intro of all these episodes of the podcast. It is a beautiful name from India. My parents chose it for me because of its meaning and significance. And it also means magic in Spanish, which I now know from living in Spain. And growing up, I felt really ashamed of my name because I was picked on, I was bullied. And I thought as a young child it would just be easier to choose a different name that was way, way, way more palatable, easier to say. And so I went by a different name for many years of my life. When I moved to a different school, I just started introducing myself through this name, to the point where a lot of people didn't know my actual name. A lot of teachers that taught me for years didn't know my actual name. A lot of my records, not like the official records, but certificates and stuff, didn't have my actual name on it. And this version of myself, I send a lot of love to this younger version of myself, and I understand why I chose a different name, because I did it to be safe, feel safe, and not feel excluded and picked on. But at the same time, it didn't allow me, like, your name is the first thing that people use to communicate with you. And it is something that's super important, right? And so I didn't claim that about myself for years and years because of what other people would say and think. And it became this whole other identity. And it took me a very long time to outgrow that. And even when I went to university, I started going by my actual name, but people didn't say it right, and I didn't have it in me to correct them. Uh, and I still introduced myself as this other name, and I was like, because it's easier to say. And only with time and actually moving abroad and starting afresh did I realize, like, no, it's important. And I look back to that time where I was this different name, and there were still people that didn't like me. There were still people that thought I was too much, that I wore too much makeup. I remember someone telling me that one of the guys in my school was like chatting about how much makeup I wear and that I'm really ugly. I remember hearing about other, like, all these other things that people would say. And this was after I tried to change myself to be more palatable. And so what I'm trying to say from this story is I'm trying to tell you that you are going to be disliked no matter what you do. So you might as well be the most bold and authentic version of yourself. If you're going to be disliked anyways, you might as well live in a way that makes you feel the happiest and the boldest. And I get why people don't do it, because it hurts to be disliked for who you really are. And so you protect yourself by being a version of yourself you're not, because it doesn't hurt as much if you're being hated on for a version that you're like, oh, well, this isn't really me. And I'm not saying that I was like fake for the amount of years of my life I went by a different name. I'm just saying that you're never gonna be the favorite person of everyone. So be the favorite person of yourself. If there's something that you want to do, if there's something that you want to wear, if you there's something that you want to say, do it. I can't remember who said this, so I'm not going to take credit for this, but I was listening to something the other day. I think it was a podcast, and someone said, if your haters can't find you, the people who love you or your fans or your community can't find you either. And that's so important. If you want to find people that really resonate with you, that celebrate you, that make you feel special for who you are, you're going to have to risk being seen by people who criticize you, condemn you, and judge you. And they are going to be the minority, I promise. And they're not your business. And the older I grow, the more I realize I don't have to deal with anyone that doesn't make me feel good. They might be in my physical space, but I don't have to take that in. I don't have to internalize anything. Um, and it feels really liberating. I think also it's so environment related. I think now I'm finally in a place where I really am a very authentic version of myself. I'm as loud, as bold, as full on as I am as a person. And in a lot of ways, I tried to dilute that over the years because I thought that I was too much. Um, and one of the main factors that I attribute that to is the people around me. I think your environment shapes you in so many ways, and surrounding yourself with people that celebrate you and don't make you feel like you're too much is so important. I love and adore my friends because I think I'm very lucky to say that I'm in a place in my life where I know my friends are rooting for me and I'm rooting for them, and that they see me and they like all of the weird dances that I do. Like me and my friends will be on the bus and we'll be doing weird dances or the weird noises, all the extra ideas and plans, or the fact that I want to celebrate every tiny little good thing that happens. And that is so nice. It's so beautiful. And I wouldn't have found that if I didn't have the courage to behave in that way. But also, I think I have the courage to behave in that way because I found that. So, my advice to you is to start doing things that you want to do that are outside your comfort zone and give yourself opportunity to meet like-minded people. If there's a hobby that you've always been scared to try or a project that you've always been scared to do it because you find people that resonate with you along the way and go to these events. Like if you want to be a musician, go to more music events. Like if you want to be more athletic, go to more run clubs or events, find people that you connect with. I think a lot of people just are comfy with their circle being the people that they are in their immediate environment, that they either live near or study near or work near. And that's great. And if you're lucky, like I am, you'll have great people in your surroundings, but not always. And it's okay to also have that group of friends, but also have people that resonate with you for who you are and your values and your interests and everything, and expand your circle and reevaluate what you want. I think going back to the whole confidence to be yourself, what I'm saying about starting something, every time I post about my podcast on my Instagram, I get like a pang of anxiety on in my stomach. And I feel like I should not be admitting that on my own podcast, but I do. I still do. I've had this podcast for a year. This is several episodes in, and I still feel anxiety posting about it on my main Instagram because I think, what will so and so person from 4 years ago that I met one time in a club think about me? Like, who cares? And I think with human psychology, there's this thing called the spotlight effect, which talks about the idea of overestimating how much people notice or care about you. You have to realize that it's not that deep. And even your friends and family, they love you and they support you, but at the end of the day, like they don't care. Like I'm not saying that in a bad way, but they're not gonna sit there and like judge you and be like, oh, like so weird, especially not your acquaintances. And if you feel that way about someone, if you feel like you're gonna be judged or perceived by someone specific, remove them. Honestly, just remove them. I used to think it was so dramatic to unfollow and block and remove people from my social media. But you have to remember that your social media is for you. And I now only actively follow people that I either like and want to keep in my life and want to keep talking to, that inspire me to do something with my life and that are living in a way that I feel like, wow, that's awesome. Go you. I want to see more. And my best friend, she told me this concept of a friend crush, which I love. And I think we always talk about like romantic crushes, but it's so possible to have a friend crush on someone as well when you see them and you're like, okay, this is so cool. Like I wanna know more about the way that you live your life and everything that you're doing. We spend so much time on our phones, and that's unescapable. I mean, it is escapable, but realistically, is it escapable? And if you're spending this much time on your phone, are you really gonna pick up your own phone and be triggered by your own social media feed? No, I don't think so. And if you think unfollowing someone specific is going to lead to a really uncomfortable conversation that you don't ha want to have, mute them, and you can revisit that conversation if you want to later when you feel more comfy to talk about why that might be the case, because it's your social media and you should not be not living your life or not like posting. I remember when I was like 15 years old, some guy told me that I post too much on my Instagram, and I'm now 21 years old, and I still think about that. It still lingers in the back of my mind every time I post a story. I'm like, oh my God, it's too much. It's too much. But it's my Instagram, and if it's too much for someone who's watching it, they can also unfollow and mute me. I'm not stopping them. I think you just have to give yourself the permission to be your most authentic self and realize that people are watching, but like it's really not that deep. And okay, this is a special PSA to all of my girlies that deep who's watching their story, because me and my friends, we've definitely been guilty of this, where you go and you see like so and so's watched the story and you're like, oh my God, he must like me. I was speaking to my brother about it the other day, and he was like, if someone views your story, it means nothing because they literally auto scroll. Like you click on one story, and then if you don't click off, they just auto scroll. And so that person might have not even have clicked on your story in the first place, and it must just like be going on in the background. And that kind of hurt me for a second because I was like, what do you mean they don't care? It doesn't mean anything. But it's so true. It does not mean anything. It really doesn't. So stop not posting the things that you don't want because you're scared that your random acquaintance is going to judge you, or your crush is going to judge you, or um your, I don't know, whatever is going to judge you. If these people are judging you, they're not for you. I think it's scary, but it's also a blessing because it filters out the people who don't actually vibe with the person that you really are and your sense of humor and your aesthetic and the things that you like. And I've actually noticed when I put things that I care about out there, I get like, and I get well received for it. It makes me feel so happy. I love it. And it's so rewarding to be appreciated, acknowledged, and recognized for who you are, and not just for this version that you think you should be. Yeah, this is your sign to go post a thing, make the documentary, make the music video, make the beat. Like it's only cringy until it's not. It's only cringy until you're doing really well. And unless you were the exception and you've somehow turned up in like from day one with perfect quality and you blow up overnight, I promise you you're gonna be cringy at the start. I don't talk about this, but when I was 15 years old, I started my own YouTube channel. Don't try to look for it because I've already pirated everything. But I started it and I look back. I haven't watched them back, but I'm sure that they were cringy, but I loved making them and I stopped because I kind of didn't have the confidence to keep going. And it wasn't the right time to be putting myself out on the internet because I was still too young and I didn't have like the thick skin that I do now to the same extent. And I am now ready to do it. And I think also, like I said earlier, don't be mad at yourself for caring what people think because it's natural and it will come and go in waves. But as long as you somehow manage to bypass that feeling and continue doing what you want to do and working towards your goals, your passions, your interests, you're doing everything that you can. This links back to what I was saying about the Instagram story. don't listen to ghosts and jokers. So, what I mean by this is don't let the ghost of Christmas past be haunting you and what you're doing. This could be your ex-friend, your ex-situationship, your ex-high school bully, your ex-teacher. I don't know why your ex-teacher would be following you on your social media, but or what you're doing, but still. Um, they're not relevant to your life and what you're doing. And like I was saying earlier, I still, to some extent, carried the voices of these people who said mean things to me when I was a kid in my brain. And I'm sure, first of all, I'm not the same person that I was all those years ago. I have grown in confidence, in ability, physically, mentally, emotionally, in so many ways. But also they have. I'm sure they're not this insecure, mean little kid anymore. And they probably don't think those things about you anymore either. And they probably don't care and they're living their life. And I think just learning to mentally kind of cut the cord and sever that that shit that you're not carrying. Like I was saying earlier, separate the tasks. It's not your task. Don't listen to the ghosts of Christmas past, please. So now you've curated your environment to make yourself feel most safe in being your authentic self. You have muted the ghosts of Christmas past, unfollowed people that don't make you feel good about yourself, followed people that inspire you. Apart from creating an environment that makes you feel good about yourself and stop asking people's opinions incessantly, the most important thing that you can do to stop caring what people think is to fall in love with your life. Now, I don't mean this in the thing of romanticize your life, which I love doing, but I understand that you are not always going to like 100% live your life. But if you fall in love with your life and the person that you are and the people you surround yourself with and where you are, it is much harder for people to make you question your worth. If you like the rituals that you have in your day to day, the routines that you have, the hobbies that you do, the people, your friendships, it is so much harder for all this external noise to come in. And that can start with small steps. First of all, if you're listening to this and you're not living a life that you love, you have to ask yourself, what is a life that I would love? What is a life that would make me feel fulfilled and happy? And write it down. And if you want, I can do a whole episode on this and journaling and vision boarding and all that kind of stuff because I have been doing that since I was 12 years old. And I'm really lucky and I'm really happy to say that I'm finally in a place where I do love my life a lot. Do I have to do stuff that I don't like doing sometimes on a day to day? Yes. Do I love every single day of my life? No, not always. But like Sharina said in a different episode, and I'm going to link that episode down below as well. If you haven't listened to it, please go listen to it. I love the conversation with Sharina Shiv, brilliant woman. If you are living your life and you're unhappy 5 consecutive days in a row because it's okay to have a bad day and have a bad moment. But if you wake up in the morning 5 days in a row and you dread what you're doing, you need to reevaluate. You need to make change because honestly, whoever you are, wherever you're listening, you're too young and you're too hot and you're wasting your potential and your time. Go and you like you deserve whoever's listening to this, you deserve to live a life that you love. And I will make a whole separate episode on this, but just start by writing down what would that look like and start making small actionable steps towards that. And the book that I was mentioning earlier talks about that as well. It talks about how you need to not keep living in the past and be present and how you should wake up every morning like it's the first day of your life and not be continuously living your life through replaying traumatic events that happened to you. Just let it go. As well as this, I also think now, okay, if you're listening to this and you're from the UK as well, I know it's a cultural thing. I know self-deprecation is such a big part of British humor, but if you think about it, it sends a really bad subliminal message. Like, I think about the sense of humor that me and my friends had growing up, and it was so mean to ourselves. And if you if you bully yourself, I think back of a time when I was younger and I used to bully myself because I thought if I bully myself, I'm doing the job of the bullies and the bully's gonna be so they're not gonna have anything to do, so they're just gonna leave me alone. Wrong. That's not how it works. Stop bullying yourself. You can still make jokes. Um, and you don't have to be arrogant or self-obsessed or entitled or whatever. By the way, being self-obsessed is not a bad thing. Being selfish, not a bad thing. Liking yourself is not a bad thing, as stigmatized as we make that. You don't all of a sudden have to believe that you're better than everyone else. But constantly putting yourself down, even if it is out of humor, one, it's not funny. It's actually just kind of uncreative. Like genuinely, if you don't have a sense of humor in a way that's not making yourself like inferior, maybe you need to reevaluate that potentially. I'm not being mean. I'm not being mean. I'm not calling you out because it was me as well. But also, like, ask yourself, am I only funny if I'm being mean to myself? And if the answer is yes, then ask yourself, do I want to continue being like that? And if the answer is yes, then okay. Honestly, I get that it is a style of humor. I get that it's a way of joking. Go for it. But when I learned to minimize this, and don't get me wrong, I still think it can be really funny from time to time, not taking yourself too seriously and making the odd joke. But if this is your constant style of communication, the conversation that you're having with yourself, about yourself, with other people, is just not healthy. And so learning to not bully yourself and have like a more positive internal dialogue is so important because you can't hate yourself into loving yourself. And that is another lesson that I talked about in my 20 things I learned at 20. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, I will link that below. So before I wrap up, I want to end this episode by giving you guys some actionable steps that you can take to really implement some of the things that we've been talking about today, because that's something I really like when I listen to podcasts and I want to start doing it for some of the episodes. So let me know what you think. So get out a pen and paper and I think start by identifying your triggers. Take like 10 minutes to write down situations where you feel really anxious about what people think. It can be, like I said, when you post something on your social media, or when you're about to do public speaking, or when you're about to submit a piece of work. Write down specific instances, whether they be social or work or social media or family, and this will make you be more aware with your triggers and where you might be really concerned with people's opinions. And then I want you to take a big highlighter and do the whole separation of tasks thing that I was talking about. I want you to get like a big red pen or like highlighter in your least favorite color. And I want you to strike out everything from this that is not your task. Because if you've reviewed this list of triggers and you think, whose task is this? This is not my task. Strike it out. Not your task. You've got too many things on your to-do list because I imagine if you're listening to this, you have too many things on your plate to be carrying tasks and burdens of other people's opinions that don't serve you. So strike it out and write down one small step you can take to focus your energy back onto you and the things that you need to worry about rather than other people's reactions. Then choose one thing that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit out of your comfort zone, and practice doing that. It can be speaking up, putting your hand up in class. It can be posting something on your social media. It can be having a conversation with someone that is making you upset, whether it be a friend or a family member or whatever. Something that is a little bit out of your comfort zone. Don't do anything that's too crazy because you don't want to shock your system and then never do it anything like just be like completely traumatized by that and not do it again. So start small, small acts of courage, build up the muscle of doing something that serves you without caring what other people think as much. And then take some time to reflect how good that felt and how you felt about that. And then if you want and if you are willing, please share your experience. Please reach out. Let me know how you feel. It doesn't even have to be with me. Share experience with a friend. Um, Tell the people in your life that you're making steps to be a more confident, happier version of yourself. And honestly, it's not just about you. When you give yourself permission to be happy and confident, you give everyone in your life permission to do the same. And so, in conclusion, remember that this is a process and it's so fine to care what people think, but it's not like, is it part of your recipe to happiness? Because personally, no, it's not for me. So if it's not for you either, then I hope that you can implement some of the tasks and tips that I gave you in today's episode. And I will link down the book that I was talking about because I think it's a really good book. Um, and I recommend you guys reading it if you have time. If you don't have time, just do the homework task that I recommended you. Um, and surround yourself with people that empower and inspire you. If you don't have people in your immediate environment right now, go follow people on social media that make you feel inspired to do stuff that you've been procrastinating or too scared to do for a long time. And ask yourself when you're feeling in doubt, what would the happier version, like what would a happy and authentic version of me be doing in this situation? And just keep doing it slowly. And I hope that this is one of the steps that you take in falling in love with your life. Now, that's it from me. I really hope that you enjoyed this. And I will be back next week with another conversation with an incredible, inspiring, empowering woman. But in the meantime, if you guys have any um, recommendations of what you want to hear, please reach out. If you have any conversations that you want me to have with people and interviews you want me to have, reach out. And if you want your story to be shared and heard, please reach out. All my love. Thank you for listening until this point. If you've still been listening, thank you so, so much. I appreciate and value you so much. Thank you for being part of my journey. And I will speak to you very soon.